Special treat today on the Viking Update Show. We're letting John Krasinski concentrate on the Wolves. So we have a guest host today, Mark Craig from the Star Tribune, veteran football writer. He and I both go back to days where we would cover playoff games in Mile High Stadium and feel like the press box was going to fall down. He covered the old Cleveland Browns. I covered the old Dallas Cowboys. We've been kind of running in the same circles for a long time, and now we've been working at the Star Tribune together for a long time. He's our wise football writer. I would say that's the role he plays for the Star Tribune. He also does a podcast with Joe Oberle. He can tell us more about that later. So, Mark, welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on. And just let's start here, since we're both old guys who started covering the NFL, I think, in the 80s. Are you shocked by how much this league has changed in our lifetime?
Oh, no. I told Joe the other day, it's like the NFL is sort of like a flesh-eating bacteria. They get done with one host, they jump to the next. So, South America is being conquered this year with that opener or the second game of the season. There's no limits, though, and that's a good thing. It's fun. As I'm sure you feel the same way. I don't like the total whitewashing of interviews and how guys are just pre-programmed to say the same things. But in general, the league's never been stronger. You got some great quarterbacks. You got some great quarterbacks, possibly great quarterbacks coming in. So, it's in a good spot. And I'm very proud to be Johnny K's backup. So I will proceed to throw probably 4 picks, again, lose to the Lions, and we'll go from there.
Okay, Jaron. Sure. Whatever you say, Jaron. We all just, walk in John Krasinski's shadow. It's just the role that we have all been cast into at this point. And by the way, listen to the John Krasinski Show. That's our basketball show here at TalkNorth.com. John is not only doing a great job with that show, but he's also doing bonus episodes during the playoffs. That's why we're giving him a little break from this show. And I also like talking to different people about the NFL, and Mark knows as much as anybody. A question I get asked a lot, Mark, is, my God, there are all these great high school teams, all these great college teams, there are international teams and other leagues. Why can't they find more good quarterbacks? And my answer to that always is they do find good quarterbacks. It's just that the bar is so high for considering somebody a good NFL quarterback that there's always going to be a limited number of people who qualify. Because if you're a great passer and you lose games, you're not going to get credit. If you're a really smart quarterback and you lose games, you're not going to get credit. If you're athletic and you don't win playoff games, you're not going to get credit. Kirk Cousins is an incredibly accurate quarterback, and he didn't really get any credit until his team started playing well the last couple of years, and he looked like he was the driver of success. So that's my answer. How do you answer that question?
Well, it just shows you the difference, how far ahead this league is, even the best college football. This league is leaps and bounds above that, and I think there aren't 32 brains that can work quickly under pressure like that. Kirk has that brain. Kirk wants to work it a little too long, I think, and stay in the pocket and kind of hold the ball a little too long. And when you think about it, Kirk Cousins, because every time someone asks me on the other podcast, it'll be, rank the quarterbacks, and I'll go through and I hate ranking stuff, but it's like that seems like a lot of what we do now. And Kirk I always have Kirk being tied with Dak Prescott, or, probably Kirk 10A and Dak 10B, something like that. You think about it, he's probably the 10th best person in the world to do this. And half the time you're saying, this guy sucks. And then the other half, you're like, this is good. 11 comebacks, but then you get to the Giants game and he's checking down with the season on the line. So, I agree. My answer is that, obviously you got to be able to throw the ball. And I think that's where you see like a Nick Mullins get exposed, because he just didn't have an NFL arm, I don't think. You have to have the mind that does it. That's number one, but you also have to be able to do it. You have to be able to physically throw the ball. And Kirk can make every pass, and Kirk half the time, or a little more than half the time, Kirk can find the receiver and he can get the ball there. But even a guy like that there was a lot of 3 and outs. In 2022 or even before that, we had so many people at the Star Tribune games, and it was always pick on the defense mainly as the main stories. And I was always kind of coming along going, yeah, but what about that 30-second 3 and out in midway through the fourth quarter, that after the defense had given up a touchdown and they're back on the field 31 seconds later? So yeah, it is the hardest position I would imagine in all of sports to play. That's what they say, and I don't argue with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's talk a little more about Kirk. Let's also talk about your podcast. We are coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. This is the Viking Update Show. Usually Jim Suhan and John Krasinski. We're going to have a couple of guest hosts here in the near future. Very happy to have Mark Craig from the Star Tribune on today. I want to thank Aquarius Home Services, Twill in the Edina Galleria, and TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time. We'll tell you more about them later. It's funny you said that you had Dak and Kirk ranked about the same, because that's exactly where I've been. I think that he's, I think at his best, you could have ranked him maybe about 8th. And at his worst, you could have ranked him like 15th or 16th. Usually I ranked him right there with Dak, bottom of the top 10. Very good quarterback, very good passer, very productive. But do you trust him when you get to a game where he's got to be the deciding factor? Listen, I think he got better the last couple of years. I think he did well with O'Connell and O'Connell's system. But there is just because the bar is so high and we're comparing any good quarterback to Patrick Mahomes, there's always that little bit of doubt with him.
Yeah, I always compared like you're a thermostat or a thermometer. It's like the thermostat. Those are the great quarterbacks. They change like Aaron Rodgers. You can love him or hate him, but when Aaron Rodgers would lose his left tackle and his center and be stuck with a crappy defense, they'd win 12 games, go to the playoffs. When Kirk kind of was more. He's a good player, but he's more of that thermometer. He measures where your team is, and if your team's not almost perfect, you're going to get a 500 record. And oh, by the way, Jeff and I got rained out. Jeff Diamond and I got your podcast buddy got rained out this morning. Since the start of the 2022 golf season, our match play is at 21, 21, and 6.
Oh,
so
my
I told
God.
him we are the Kirk Cousins of match play golf. So
that's fantastic. And by the way, of course, if you don't know, you probably do, but Jeff Diamond does our other Viking show on this network, the Jeff Diamond Show. Jeff Diamond is Vikings and NFL insider. Great guy. He was a great guy to us when he was a general manager and a president of the Tennessee Titans. He's always been a good guy. And he's probably the best person, I think, locally in terms of breaking down salary cap issues and how things are actually going to play out. So check out that podcast as well. Again, if you like a show, this one, Jeff's, John Krasinski's, Chin Music with Roy Smalley and Lavelle Neal, please subscribe at your favorite podcast app. It's the easiest way to listen. It's also free. Tell me about your podcast with Joe Oberle.
Probably a lot less sophisticated than yours. I don't think we have any. Well, I know we don't have any advertisers. I think they tried a couple of them, and it's Vikings territories. I mean, I go on podcasts. I've never listened back to my podcast. Maybe I should.
Nah.
It's obviously a fan website. I am probably in two regards. I'm the one that doesn't get too excited, but I'm also the one telling fans, step away from the ledge whenever there's they're due for a loss or something, and say, hey, the season is, it's 17 games, calm down. So, it's a good site. Actually, I would like someone at the Star Tribune to figure out how these guys get to the top of all the search engines and stuff, because I think they come up more than our Star Tribune does. So it's a good site. It's a good podcast. We have fun. We talk some golf. We talk a lot of Vikings. Joe is he's probably losing everyone, but I think he's leading off with about 5 minutes of Wolves talk. So hopefully the Vikings fans are big
Vikings
Wolves
fans will not
too.
tolerate that.
Yeah. So come on, Joe, let's focus here.
I love it. By the way, also want to introduce and welcome one of our newest sponsors at TalkNorth.com, True Vision Institute. John Krasinski is going to go get LASIK there. He's in the preliminary process of checking it all out. When the Wolves are done, he's going to go get LASIK surgery there. Welcome to True Vision Institute. We'll tell you more about them later as well. So back to Kirk. How do you think things are going to play out for him in Atlanta?
Yeah, that's I think he's pretty well established. He's in year 13, 12. They have a good team down there. They could have had a better team if they would have used the 8th overall pick to help him. But that's also one of those things that we could be looking at in 5 years from now, and it'd be genius if Michael Penix ends up being a great quarterback. You could say, well, you got to do it the Atlanta way, the Green Bay / Atlanta way. So who knows how that's going to play out? being in that division helps because it's not a great division. Does Baker Mayfield have a year two like he had year one down there in Tampa? Who knows? They have I think Kirk should take them to the playoffs or help get them to the playoffs, and after that, I don't know. It could be a one and done, maybe.
Yeah, it very well could be. And the thing is, I mean, I've made it well known in all our podcasts here. I loved Michael Penix for the last 2 years, and I kind of hoped the Vikings would end up with him. I don't, JJ McCarthy looks like a good player to me. I just like the guy who was really lighting up defenses as a quarterback in college rather than the guy who's kind of running a run first offense. But tell me what you think of McCarthy and how the draft played out.
Well, I love the fact that they had, we all assumed that there's going to take, both of their number ones to get a quarterback. Yep. The fact that they got we'll see. It's funny because, all these years of seeing Daniil in person, you kind of see this guy walk up in person. You're like, that's it, but you got to remember that Daniil, Myles Garrett, those are like the NFL supreme bodies. This guy, when they brought us in and showed us, clips when O'Connell and Kwesi, brought the beat writers in and, explaining, his handwork, his arms, the length of his arms and how he can get to tackles first before they can get to him. I'll say, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I think he needs to grow a little bit, but I love the fact that they got, the second defensive guy off the board and still got their quarterback. So, I think McCarthy, I'm an Ohio State guy, so I've spent a lot of time rooting against the guy. And he always let me down by coming through. I don't care that he only, attempted 25 passes or whatever. What did he do with them? Well, he completed 70-some% and he won a national championship. So, he looks pretty good. It's, but I think he's in a good situation. He doesn't have to start. I think he will start. I think he'll, Sam Darnold, I think we can pretty much bank on what he's going to be. I don't think there's a magic, as good as they are with quarterbacks at TCO. There's no magic pill that's going to make Sam Darnold, live up to that number 3 overall pick. So I think he'll be starting sooner than later. And I like that. I like him, but man, as you and I both know, going back doing this 35 years or whatever, you just have no idea at this point.
No, you really don't. And it's always a mystery. Everybody's making an educated guess. I did like, we had Tim Connolly, the Timberwolves CEO, on a live podcast out at Head Flyer Brewing with the John Krasinski show. And I was asking him, because, the Gobert deal has worked out, but he gave up a lot to get Gobert. It should work out. The deal that I looked at is trading D'Angelo Russell, a guy that they wanted out of the building. They would have traded him for nothing, and they get Mike Conley and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 of their top 7 players. That's the deal that puts you over the top. And I asked him, hey, how do you know that thing's going to work? He says, you just guess. And that's the most honest answer I've ever heard from a general manager. You do your research, you talk to your people, you try to use your intuition, and at the end, it's still a guess.
Well, you look at what happened in San Francisco. Trey Lance, they moved heaven and earth to get Trey Lance. And, what they gave up, 3 1s and all of this to go up and get him, it's a fireable offense unless you finish the next draft. I think it was the very next year with the last overall pick and you take Brock Purdy, and then the genius of that outweighs Trey Lance. You trade Trey Lance for a 4th round pick and we move on. So yeah, if you pick a great player, it really doesn't matter what you give, especially in today's NFL. As aggressive as the coaches are on the field, the general managers they're even more aggressive off the field and what they do. And the Rams, what they did to win a Super Bowl. If McCarthy's is an outstanding player, that's going to be what's even going to help that pick even more is if Dallas Turner ends up being a great player, because if you look ultimately what they gave up to get him, it's essentially a 2nd, a 3rd, and a 4th, I believe. So yeah, he needs to come through as well. And I don't know if they get judged on it immediately, but there's some bad footprints in the snow so far with the draft picks of Kwesi at this point. He needs this draft here to to come through, or his days are numbered.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, I want to talk some more big picture NFL and some more Vikings here. Once again, we want to let you know we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, and we want to thank Aquarius Home Services.
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. Making your life better is a huge priority for us at Aquarius. It may start with providing worry-free water or heating and cooling systems you can trust, but there's another very important reason. Aquarius is family-owned and operated. We work hard to earn the right to be recommended. That means upfront, no-surprise pricing, providing a 5-star experience, and treating your home and time with respect. And knowing we're just a click away at AquariusHomeservices.com.
And welcome to Chu Vision Institute, CHU Vision Institute.
Yeah, Chu Vision Institute in Bloomington. I was there earlier this week to get a consultation for LASIK surgery. Found out I'm a great candidate for it, and super easy to set up an appointment. Go in there. They run you through a bunch of tests. Their people are very nice, and they will give you a straight up and honest answer for your options for your vision correction. And I'm looking forward to having LASIK at Chu Vision once the playoffs are over. So go to chuvision.com to set up your appointment, and you won't be disappointed at all. Great people at Chu Vision.
Mark, you need to know about Twill in the Edina Galleria. Scott Dayton, big sports fan, great guy, big Viking fan, spends a lot of time around his kids and youth sports too. Best men's clothing store in Minnesota. I go there all the time. I buy all my stuff there. Traveling during the Wolves playoffs, it's nice because I can throw my Peter Millar and Johnny O shirts, my Brax pants in the suitcase, and they come out looking great. They're wrinkle resistant, and he's got all the stuff he carries is great stuff. They have shoes. They have Johnny O, which I love. They have Peter Millar, which I love. They have Grayson. And it's perfect time to go there to buy for graduation gifts, for golf, for business meetings. I bought my best suit there. I also bought my most casual shorts there. They have everything. Twill in the Edina Galleria, twillmn.com. Sign up for their emails. They won't spam me to death. They'll just let you know when they have an event. Twill in the Edina Galleria, Twill by Scott Dayton, twillmn.com. Also, thanks as always to one of our longest running sponsors, TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR-TIME. That's all you need to know if you're injured. Call 612-TSR-TIME, and they'll take good care of you. The NFL went through a period where you could see the threat of concussion lawsuits, maybe damaging the league and its future. And it feels like nobody even talks about that anymore. Is the NFL at this point pretty bulletproof in terms of popularity and its future?
Well, I think when they had that settlement or whatever, who knows if it'll be enough for long term and everything. But by shining the light on it, I think they made it available or more available for players that were injured to get money. Now there's some that would still argue that it's not enough, or some aren't getting it. But it also signaled to the future that, hey, that there are risks involved in playing. Whereas, it sounds silly now, but they denied that for a long time.
A long time.
And by the way, all these is that when you're walking into the stadiums and they're saying, "Hey, Suhan, what are you wearing?" Is that what you like, the red carpet deal?
Yeah, it's like I'm wearing Johnny O, and I get asked that question a lot, and I always answer honestly.
I'm wearing Johnny O.
I'm wearing Johnny O. It doesn't sound right.
One guy's getting LASIKs, another guy's getting suits. The only advertiser that we had on our podcast was Manscaped, and we couldn't even say that. I couldn't even talk about that without laughing. So.
Well, I tell you, John Krasinski, we had Manscaped on our network for a long time, mainly on the John Krasinski show. And the reason they stayed with us for a long time is because to listen to John Krasinski talk about shaving his man parts with a straight face was funnier than any Seinfeld ever recorded.
Well, yeah, I stayed away from that. I probably could have sold that if I could have gotten through without laughing. So.
Well, we laughed at John, not with him.
Yes.
We laughed at John when he did that.
Yes, it's always good to laugh at John.
Yes, no doubt about it. Okay, I forgot what the hell we were talking about. Where were we?
Concussions. Speaking of which, neither one of us can remember. Concussions.
Yeah, concussions. So I just feel like the league it's like not only is the league popular, it feels like the league has gotten to that level that some celebrities get to, which is you're popular because you're popular. It doesn't even matter if you earn the original popularity. You're so popular that everything you do makes you more popular.
Yeah, it's funny because I did a history for the Star Tribune, the history of the mock draft, and
Yes,
talking
that
to
was great.
guys that the sort of the generation before us, guys that worked in the Rick Goslins and even before that, and kind of trying to I was talking to Mel Kiper. I'm like, Mel, the first, I always thought the first mock draft should be under glass like the Constitution or something.
Yes.
But in doing that, it was also kind of a history of the league and talking to Ron Wolf about, Al Davis, when back in the AFL and the NFL, when they were competing over players and stashing players, and the NFL needed babysitters, and the AFL would Al Davis would take a guy right from his final college game to Vegas. And the Detroit found out where this guy was because they wanted to draft him. They went to go get him. Al flew him to Hawaii, things like that. So it's but the point of all that is, I was talking to Joe Brown, and Joe Brown, the former,
yes,
he joined the NFL in '66, and he was just talking about. We were talking about Pete Rozelle. The famous quote was when they said ESPN wanted to televise the draft in 1980, and Pete Rozelle famously said, why would they want to do that? And Joe Brown said that Pete Rozelle, the number one, carnival barker for the NFL, the best salesman the NFL has ever had. He goes, Pete Rozelle used to believe that fans needed a break, that they needed that little bit of break. Let them watch baseball, let them mow their lawn. And now we're at to the point where if the NFL senses that you are, turning away, suddenly the schedule becomes a 3-hour release. There's a soft opening to free agency, the tampering period, the illegal tampering period. It really is a 365. It doesn't. If you've been around as long as we have, you tend to. We don't hyperventilate as much as some others do when it comes to what they're trying to They're trying to ring a bell over here to get us to run like a cat, So, but yeah, that I thought it was funny when Joe said that. I was like, wow. If Pete Rozelle could see, what he created and where it's gone from where he started it, even he would be amazed.
Oh, no doubt about it. And, go back to, and your piece, by the way, people, you should subscribe to the Star Tribune because Mark does great stuff and stuff that it's unique. It's not just the run of the mill, everyday stuff. His stuff actually will bring you some insights and some humor that you won't get in normal NFL coverage. Subscribe to the Star Tribune. Help us keep traveling and do all the things we do right now. We do appreciate it. I remember when I started covering the draft, Joel Bushbaum might have been the only person who was doing like mock drafts, and you had to mail him and he would send you his pamphlet in the mail. You'd wait a week to get it, and then you'd keep it with you all the time because it was like the only way to get information on the draft. That's how far we've come.
Oh yeah. It's funny because, obviously Joel was a big part of the story, and I didn't realize that it was actually pronounced Bucksbaum until
I didn't know that.
Talking to Howard Balzer. Howard Balzer, was Sporting News, and had a radio show in St. Louis, still working, by the way. And Howard was like, they had him on, Joel was on all these radio stations, even in Houston with John McClain, I think, and St. Louis with Howard. And Bucksbaum's mom always wanted him to say that it was Bucksbaum. And Joel was afraid because he was on a radio show in St. Louis with Bush. He said he thought that he was popular because it was, his name was Bush.
I love it. And you know what? I lived in St. Louis. It's probably true.
So yeah, and yeah, I remember getting Joel's book, and obviously pre-internet, there were a lot fewer. There weren't as many experts before the internet. So when they drafted a guy in the 12th round, just to find out who the heck he was, how tall he was, what he weighed. You looked at these guides, and that's kind of think about carrying around a dictionary with your trash 80 that would store. If you wrote 4 stories, you had to kill one out because there wasn't room for a 4th story. And when you sent it, it would go line by line and take 5 minutes to send or something like that.
It was excruciating to write on those on deadline. Excruciating. So some things have gotten better, some things have gotten worse. You being able to send your story in a second is better. The internet is worse.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, the more I say that, it's like it's up to me. I don't. It seems like Twitter, X, whatever, is dying off because you don't see the when you, because I basically just post a story or occasionally comment, and you don't get the attacks that you used to get. So maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk he's destroying everything he touches, and X is dying because of him. We'll see if anybody else steps up to save it. By the way, you mentioned Joe Brown. I don't even know what his title was, but he was basically the chief information officer. He was like Rozell's and Tagliabue's right-hand man who kind of oversaw PR and league image and all those other things. So here's my Joe Brown story. I'm covering the Vikings back in the 91. Super Bowl was coming to the Metrodome that year. So I'm on the road doing like playoff games. I spent like 2 or 3 weeks in DC covering the Washington Redskins before they came here. And all year I used my Sunday NFL notes column, another thing that's died. And every week I would take a shot at Paul Tagliabue just for being kind of a stiff, boring guy. Right. So I just constantly just throwing darts at him because I was a jerk. Not was a jerk. I am a jerk. And Joe Brown like warned me a couple times. He goes, man, you got to stop doing this. Also at that time, I was a very aggressive young reporter, and I found a way to get Paul Tagliabue's home phone number. And I called him a couple times trying to get him to comment on different stories. Of course, he didn't answer. And Joe Brown said, you got to stop calling him. You got to stop calling him. So how did Joe Brown get his revenge? Well, I'm covering the NFC Championship game, Lions and Redskins at old RFK. And I've been sitting middle, first row, 50-yard line at every NFL game I cover. I walk in and I see all my friends, all my peers, and look at the seating chart. I can't find my name. For the NFC Championship game, Joe Brown made sure that I was sitting upper deck, end zone, in a quote-unquote auxiliary press box with a guy dressed like a hog. He got
facing away from the stadium, probably, right?
Facing away. He got me, man. He got me, and I was like, okay, that's pretty good. You got me.
And Sid Hartman's he's flipping the coin at halftime or at the beginning of the game, probably, right?
Yes, yeah. It was the Sid Hartman Super Bowl, so Sid was a little more willing to kiss up to people than me. I think you might be able to say that.
Yeah.
Hey, let's close on this to get back to current events. This feels like to me like a rebuilding year, no matter whether they want to admit it or not. Do you think that's true, or do you think there's a chance of being, a contender this year for the Vikings?
Well, yeah, I think I gave the over-under on wins. Like, they won 7 last year with, Mesa quarterback. There's some hope for the future, but I think currently right now, if your choice is Sam Darnold or a rookie quarterback kind of learning his way, my over-under on wins is probably 6. I mean, I don't have any high expectations of them, but as you know, sometimes when you have no expectations, they win, and when you have high expectations, they tank. So I think it's rebuilding, but in saying that, it's there's a lot of 1-year deals, and so but I think you get that quarterback, that better be your foundation, and if it's not, there's not a lot of patience in the NFL anymore. Justin Fields is gone. He's in Pittsburgh. I thought that there was still something there with, I don't fault them for taking a quarterback number 1 overall, but it's like the impatience is crazy when you think of those, 4 of the 5 quarterbacks in 21 are gone from their teams. So long story short, I would say, yeah, to me, it's a rebuilding year. It's steal some wins if you can. I'd say lean on the running game, but they do have a better running back, but they also they're not very strong on the interior offensive line. So I'd call it rebuilding and really hope that the team and the fans have to hope that JJ McCarthy, there is something there to build around. And then that makes this year good no matter what.
Yeah, well said. Exactly right. Thanks to Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Again, subscribe to the Star Tribune. Check out Mark's work there. Check out his podcast with Joe Oberle. Of course, check out the Jeff Diamond Show here at talknorth.com and subscribe to any shows you like here. So for Mark Craig and Brandon Morton, I'm Jim Suhan. This is talknorth.com. Thanks for listening.